District Council hearings for the Freedom Camping Bylaw, and so 30th of April 2021. Are there any apologies?
Yes, from Terry Walker.
Terry Walker and
Martin Rodley for lateness.
okay. So is everybody happy with that? Do I have a mover?
Yep.
Murray, seconder, Tony. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Yes, carried. So it's lovely to see you all here. Are there any conflicts of interest? There being none. So if I just outline today's format, so it'll be basically we'll be hearing all of the submitters. Our expectation is that everybody will treat everybody else with absolute respect, and it's a matter of the submitter presenting to us their view of the bylaw and us asking questions, so we don't get into debate or discussions around the content, because that's saved for deliberations. So I'll be mindful of that as we move forward. So now I'd pretty much love to invite our first submitter as we go bang on time. Great pleasure in inviting Graham Osborne, submission on page 94. Graham.
Or 467 of your full agenda packet.
Yeah.
I'm a controlling one. Okay, can we go backwards? Okay. I'll kill everybody. It's nice to be here, and you know, you've been around a while and just about recognise a lot of faces around the table, don't you? So thanks for the opportunity, and I'll work through this. So I'm Muttering resident, as you can see. I've said in the submission I'm either for Freedom Camping, but I think there are some issues we need to address. So Freedom Camping, according to put a on the website done by Fresh Info, says that freedom camping is when you camp on public land that isn't a recognised camping ground like Holiday Park. I contend that freedom camping is a really low value visit segment, and you can see there that compared to, and this is also off the Fresh Info the website, you can see that the international average spend is $193 a day, and even at the high end of Freedom Camping Hire, you can see it's only $83 a day, which is quite low. And it comes down here to the basic. These people are coming and spend $6,000 buying their own vehicle, stick a sticker on the back of it. They're only spending $38 a day. Compared to domestic, which is also quite low. That research is quite current. It was for the calendar year ending 2019, so it's pre-COVID. That would be a different picture now, slightly different picture now. Freedom camping is big. In New Zealand, about 2.7 million camping nights are spent in New Zealand, and you can see cascading down the right-hand side that Thames Coromandel area that ranks 4th. It is the top North Island destination for freedom camping, ahead of established tourism resort towns like Rotorua, for example. And again, this is all taken, again, you see my source there is MB, and so it's big business. And you can see here I've got some others for comparison. I won't go through those. QLD, by the way, is Queenstown Lakes District, not Queensland. Tasman, surprisingly, is the biggest. I was surprised by that. I thought it might have been the Queenstown Lakes District, but it's not. The community feedback also out of this is that 75.7% of respondents consider that freedom camping impacted negatively on the environment, and that is one of my major contentions. 55.3% wanted more restrictions, and 10.3% wanted banning. The main motivation for freedom camping is cost-driven. So people are essentially choosing to take freedom camping as their holiday mode because it's a lower cost and you get better scenery. Some said it provided a more intimate experience with nature, and I think I can understand that. But you can see the slight variation here in terms of what motivates people. People who bought their own vehicle, 95%, obviously it's $6,500 average spend on a vehicle. See, so that tells you what sort of vehicle it is. and it's mainly that low end. We know the problems, and TCDC is not alone in experiencing those. So I won't dwell on that, although you can see here, and TCDC has taken the initiative, supported, I understand, by MB of the Freedom Camping ambassadors. And as I say, your issues are not unique. The Freedom Camping Act, I consider, is not fit for purpose. I'm saying it needs to be repealed. There are big gaps and holes in it. And it's resulted in some really unhelpful phenomena around New Zealand. So there's a lack of national consistency. So someone driving from TCDC to Hauraki, there's a local government border, people don't notice them. They're irrelevant. So I talk about the need for a national consistency. NZTA land is not included, it's only dock and council land. And so the ability to control camping theoretically along roadsides and road reserves is not covered in the Act, according to my reading of it. This doesn't refer to standards for vehicles, although there is a standard. And as Nash himself said, the Act does not contain, no, they didn't say that, actually it was the High Court case, TCDC versus New Zealand Motor Caravan Association. The judge concluded that the Act does not contain a clear statement of purpose of the kind that often appears at the outset. The Act was hastily put together in advance of Rugby World Cup 2011. Councils are left to bear the burden of cost and administration that runs counter to the National Tourism Strategy, which talks about community wellbeing, social licence, etc. And it's an intrusion on public amenity. It represents an intrusion on public amenity. It fails to deliver outcomes. We've now got the context for tourism has changed with reports from the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment and from the Climate Commission. The Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment's report was specifically tourism focused. And he talks.
So you're talking about the Freedom Camping Act. We're dealing with the bylaw.
No, I'm going on to that.
Okay, you haven't got much more time left.
All right.
So you need to, how many more pages have you got?
A few, but I'm not going to talk to them.
Right.
So I'm saying as a standard, I thought I had half an hour.
No, you do not have half an hour, absolutely not. And I think you're just trying that one on, aren't you?
No, I'm not.
Oh, seriously? What makes you think you had half an hour?
So, no, that's all right. It'll be my clumsiness. So I'm saying here, there is a New Zealand standard that applies, not being enforced. There is a national context. Nash has now put out a paper.
We're talking about the bylaw.
Nash is saying, and then I've gone, okay, onto the bylaw, what we want.
So this is out of scope.
Here we go. This is
You understand that phrase? This is out of scope. The Act is out of scope.
Okay. 4C should be considered in the bylaw. Protecting and restoring our environment should be reflected in the bylaw. Coromandel should be targeting, there should be a reference to only targeting low impact visitors. Impacts in communities are significant, can't be brushed over. The Freedom Camping Act is a problem. TCDC ratepayers should not be subsidising this sector, which I believe they are currently. Tourism needs to be fully costed. Too much of tourism, the load of tourism lands on the council, and the bylaw should account for portioning the costs back onto users. The subsidy is inequitable. Freedom Camping's impact on public amenity. We need to address through the bylaw the inadequate monitoring of freedom camping on the Coromandel and nationally actually, for the abuse of parking regulations and for authentic vehicle hygiene standards according to New Zealand standard needs to be implemented. And government policy settings need to be nationally consistent. The borders between local governments are irrelevant. And this deliberation should be considered premature, given Mr. Nash has put out a paper for feedback that will impact directly on what you're trying to achieve. So I'm saying this is ahead of what should be. So there we are.
Okay, well I had some questions, but then they've gone out of my head. So do we have any questions of Graham?
I do.
You mentioned about the person that was fined $400 for defecating. In the report that came up, how many people were actually fined and actually paid the money?
I don't know, but National's changing that now. You can't leave the country without paying your money. It's putting in place mechanisms to record fines against individuals, not fines against companies.
And because I'm not quite familiar how it actually operates, does the bylaw officer give them the thing same as the fine?
Yeah.
And but what if they dispute it? Because although the Act talks about strict liability, and in the next paragraph, the next section talks about all the defences.
Yeah.
If they're going to oppose it, the cost is going to be for the council, the local body, to enforce it. It's going to be outweighed whatever they might.
I think enforcement does need to be attended. I don't have an answer for you on that. Except that Nash.
Okay, any further questions? Any more questions, Gary?
Was that in the report, that aspect I just wrote?
No, I went through and did a media scan for that.
Thank you.
Is, in your reading of the legislation, did you see anywhere there that prevented us from perhaps charging for freedom camping within our district?
No, I don't see anything there that prevents it. They now call it responsible camping, which is quite helpful, not freedom camping, because freedom camping implies free.
That's right, and that's why I asked the question about whether or not there was anything in the legislation that stopped us from actually having a charge for anyone wanting to come in under that freedom camping.
No, I consider the council as competing with holiday parks by assigning freedom camping. I think the solutions for council are outside the scope of this, but I do believe that private sector could be encouraged to set up more camping opportunities for freedom campers, and they shouldn't necessarily be entitled to the prime, most premium sites on Coromandel, which impact on public amenity. So I've got a public amenity argument which I push really firmly.
So you would support the proposal to amend the campground regulations which allow remote campsites on areas of the Coromandel district because of the remoteness of some of these areas. That means it puts it into private property because currently, okay, thank you.
I think it's a private sector solution.
Yes, thank you. Any further questions, Murray?
Graham, will you leave us a copy of that presentation?
You're welcome to distribute it, aren't you?
Thank you.
Awesome, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Appreciate the work that's gone into that because we are very interested at that level, but it's outside the scope of what we're doing here for the bylaw.
Yeah, I understand. The recommendations, I think, seems to be quite vital.
Some good ones in there. Thank you, Graham.
No, pleasure. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Right, our next submitter is Tony Gurley. Is that Tony? Hi there. Welcome, Tony.
Sorry, what was that?
Page 15. Tony, welcome. Would you like to present your submission?
Thank you, Mayor Sandra Gowdy and councillors. I appreciate this opportunity to speak, and it's clearly a very difficult issue. It seeks to balance a number of differing interests in the community. So it's great that the council has consulted so widely. My wife and I are mostly interested in the 25 Paku Drive. We live across the road from that site. And though the issues that we're talking about, they're the same for many of the other places as well. In reviewing the submissions for this area, it seems clear that the clear majority of opinions favour not increasing the number of parks available to freedom camping, and for a raft of good reasons. While those that are in favour of increasing the spaces mostly cited benefits to the businesses in the community, which are frankly doubtful, and the previous speaker has alluded to that. They emphasise also their entitlement to this freedom, which in fact is only free because the ratepayers funded it. So, across the road here at 25 Paku Drive, this area is already restricted, and rightly so, as it's the car park for the main beach access in Tairua. It's where the surf lifesavers are based, and hence the main beach access for locals, families and surfers. And the parking is already limited and often overloaded, and there are only very old and basic toilets for both male and female. There's a very strong feeling, and again, the previous speaker mentioned it, that it's not the council's responsibility, and thus not the ratepayers' responsibility, to provide free cleaning services for the toilets and free rubbish collection for the Freedom campers, especially when it compromises the access and use for the local people. As I mentioned a moment ago, the premise that Freedom Camping brings benefit to the community by their spending is not, to my knowledge, backed up by any evidence. And the very fact that they are Freedom Camping shows that they do not want to spend, but rather to have a free stay. And anyway, it's not the responsibility of the council/ratepayers to encourage people into the community in the hope that it may benefit a few businesses, while at the same time creating competition for the only local camping ground that's privately owned. It is privately owned, and strangely enough, I believe it's a tenant of the council. There's an increasingly large wave of these campers travelling the country. Caravan and RV sales have been at an all-time high, and many dealers have been saying that they've never had it so good, and they've been simply running out of stock. So there's a wave of campers seeking free access and services, and it will grow rapidly in the near future, from both within the country and when the borders are reopened, from the pressure from international tourists. And policing this is really difficult. We see it quite often. The fines, as they stand, are not very effective. We already see the number of campers regularly exceeding the allowable limit, and enlarging the area will not fix that, but it'll simply encourage more delinquency. The initiative to have ambassadors out there talking to the campers and giving them free blue rubbish bags has not had any effect that we can see. Tourism it's important. Yes, we need it and we want it, but not at that end of the market. Freedom campers are doing their level best to spend as little as possible, and yet they still feel entitled to more in the way of services freely available to them. There are even suggestions that we put in showers for them and provide even larger parking slots. Really? The sort of tourism that we need is that which pays for itself in the first instance and then brings in an added benefit to the community. The recent task force for tourism talked in terms of, and I quote, visitors covering the full cost of tourism. It's a concept I believe that we need to put into effect here in the Coromandel. So I finished with that. So please leave the present level of available spots as they are at 25 Parker Drive. Delete them if possible, but I ask at the very least that they not be increased. Thank you.
Tony, I've got a couple of questions for you. Do you have an alternate site where you could put the Freedom campers, which would be large, for want of a better phrase, in a back paddock somewhere?
We have only lived here for the last 4 years, and I understand that prior to that there was a campsite allocated to Freedom campers just prior to the entry of the town. I think it's called Redbridge, but I understand that it was very ineffective and very, very untidy, but perhaps that was simply a policing and advertising problem.
Okay, my second question is do you see that this is now becoming a lifestyle as people start looking to live in small spaces and now are actually living more permanently in their Freedom camper or camper vans or motor vans or whatever on our roads? Do you see that now as a living lifestyle? That's
an interesting thing. There is at least one vehicle that we know that just skips around 2 days at each side here, and so he's permanently residing in his vehicle. And I noticed that one of the submissions put in, the lady said that they lived in their camper van. They had one here and they had one in Australia, and they spent half their time here and half their time in Australia. And of course, these people don't pay rates. So yes, it is an increasing, I think that it is an increasing lifestyle choice.
All right, thank you. Any questions, further questions of Tony? There being none, thank you very much, Tony. We appreciate you taking time to make a submission.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd now like to call Wayne Carter, page 462 or 89. Wayne, hello, where's Wayne? Hello, Wayne. Goodbye, Tony. Good on you, Wayne.
I'm just hoping my ability to keep up with technology impresses everyone or not.
Good on you.
The shoot next.
Yeah, we're going to try, so just bear with me. Can you see that?
Yes, we can. Well done.
Well, bugger it, it's in the wrong place, so hang on. Let me go back. There we go.
I couldn't do that.
So good morning to Sandra and councillors and others who are on this call. Thanks very much for the opportunity to talk to the hearing today and giving me and us the opportunity to make this presentation. I say us because we've lived in Pleasant Place, Pauanui, for 35 years. And there's a group of 10 neighbours who have, whilst I put a submission in for ourselves, there's a group of 10 neighbours where we got ourselves together and sort of concluded on what our approach would be, so we get some commonality rather than just what Wayne thinks or someone else thinks. So I'm hoping that makes sense. Quite frankly, for today, the reference of our group is just in two parts. The first part being that we're focusing on Pleasant Point, and I suppose Pauanui in general, but we don't feel we have the knowledge, or it would be wrong for us to make comments about other areas within the TCDC area, because that's for other people with greater knowledge than us to have. So big focus on Pauanui, big focus on Pleasant Point in particular. And then I'd just like to close with what I'm already hearing actually from a couple of presenters already is what we see is really the challenge of that the council has in respect of the so-called freedom camping and what the council has the ability to do or not do, while actually looking for increased revenue from other people. So there's a bit of a dichotomy there, so I'll come on to that. So if you're okay, just in terms of the presentation itself, it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward, but Pleasant Point, the whole reserve area at the moment, frankly, is an accident waiting to happen because of just a high density of use of people and types of use. Here's a couple of pics I just took during sort of the summer holiday or Christmas holidays. I think this was kind of around New Year. A lot of types of use and that sort of thing. And that photo there, if I've got it right, if my geography is right, that's about the area where this freedom camping spot is proposed. But as I show you these couple of pictures, I just want to acknowledge that actually the Parks and Reserves folk at TCDC do a fine job right across the year of looking after that really large sort of recreation area. So well done to them. So a bit of a bouquet there. So look, I'm really proposing this as a question, all councillors and Sandra. What is the logic to actually adding further risk to an area that's clearly a good part of the year under duress in terms of this accident waiting to happen? I mean, I don't think it's right that I should slavishly go through this list. You can all read just as well as I can, but there is a plethora of users and use types in that area. And I mean, we were back for Easter, and quite frankly, with all of these things that are going on, and then the added load if the tide just happens to be right, for those 3 or 4 or 5 hours during that period, the line-up of boats and boat trailers and that sort of thing right across the area. Nothing wrong with that, because they come and they go. The whole point we're trying to make here is that there is just a huge competition of people. And, we have seen 3 accidents that we can recall. I don't think it's right that I should go right through those now. No one was killed. But do we ever have to wait for someone to get seriously injured, like maybe I don't know, a jet ski trailer backing over a little child or something like that? So the point I'm making here is big area, actually, really big area, but a really, really high density of use at various times. And you know what? And I've heard other people say the same thing. This is nothing particularly profound from us, but you know, there are alternatives today. There is a camping ground, a bona fide camping ground. It's been there for many, many years. The recreation club offers facilities for camping motorhomes and caravans and the like. And there are already 2 freedom camping areas within Pawanui, rightly or wrongly. And we think about council, and we think about, you know, I did a submission on the rates increase last year. And, you know, when you were looking for sort of 10%, and unfortunately you made it 5%. I know there's pressure on where do we get the money, but by adding yet another freedom camping area, I mean, other people have said the same thing. You know, you'd have to develop the area, whether it's a hard fill area or not, or whether it's just a lined off area. There's tree stumps all over the place. Then someone's gonna have to police it. And I look at your ambassadors, or whatever we politely call them, who've got one hell of a job sort of moving people on. And I see them in our area from time to time when people don't follow the rules and they go and demo camp there anyway. And then of course there's the maintenance of that area. And then there's just this much higher wear out on existing facilities, like the fantastic barbecue area you've put down there, the toilets, the shower. You know, with more people going through, unpaying people going through, you're just putting more pressure on those facilities, higher maintenance costs, and you know, up the cost of council goes. So that's where we see it, sort of from a big, it's a major safety issue waiting to happen, in our opinion. So this is what I'm really struggling with, and I think sense from within, you know, anybody I've spoken from within the council, I think the council does have a real challenge, you know, with a combination of, you know, what's been legislated, so to speak, and what you have to deal with. But, you know, I think rightly so. You know, when you put the rate submission out, you say basically that one of the questions was, how can we get more income? How can we get more money? And I understand, or we understand, that there's a submission about, you know, about putting boat ramp fees up and that sort of thing. Well, you know, that may be all well and good, but it's a complete dichotomy when we're looking for more money and that sort of thing. At the same time, we're offering areas of camping for free. I mean, frankly, the best word we can use is, you know, it is unconscionable.
Sorry, Wayne, can you start to wind it up, please?
I'm done. So, in conclusion, has this really been well thought through? I suspect and it's a really highly unsafe area. That's it from me.
I appreciate that about Pleasant Point. And I don't know if you heard me ask the questions before of the previous submitters, but I did ask a question about whether or not the legislation was silent on whether we could actually charge freedom campers coming into our district. It actually, I don't know that the legislation actually says we can't. It doesn't say anything on it really. It just has a heading saying freedom camping. Well, hello. So I'm just putting it out there. Are there any questions of Wayne?
Yes.
Robin.
Sorry, Wayne, I'm just a little bit unclear, because at the moment, anybody in a camper van or one of those little things that people complain about can go to Pleasant Point during the day, and they can park there during the day, and that's fine, and they can go away also, yeah. And so I'm confused as to why you think having them stay overnight is going to be an increased risk when there are already all of those other things happening, like the water skis and the boat ramp and the children playing. So because if they're staying there overnight, I'm just not sure what the connection is between them being there at night time and there being an increased risk of an accident or...
Yeah, I mean, I think I understand your question. I mean, it's just a sheer factor of density. So whether they're there at night or during the day, when, you know, when there's high use of the area, which is the problem around safety, I think, with due respect, I think it's irrelevant. They're still there at some point when there's very, very high density. So you're adding more load onto the area in respect of vehicle movements and just people on the ground and camping areas and picnic areas. I mean, they all impinge, one impinges on the other. So it's really, I think the best answer is it's just simply a density issue, and we're just adding more load onto an area that's highly taxed now in terms of use.
Can I ask, Wayne, so the use, would you say, is it highly used by the ratepayers of the area as they holiday in the area themselves, and that being ratepayers, and that they are the biggest users of that place, of that site, Crescent Point?
Sandra, I think it's the best judgment I can make. The short answer is yes. I mean, you see the boats, people, dogs, whatever, the families, all the things that I listed, and you do see them around the township when you're walking yourself. So is it a categoric? I don't know, but I suspect that it's highly used by locals, as in ratepayers and their friends, and and that's the best judgment I've got, but it's not scientific.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you very much for your time, Wayne. It's been great doing it from home. Now, Alistair, page 447 or page 74? Is he online as well?
Yes,
Alistair?
he is.
Goodbye, Wayne. Hello, Alistair.
Good morning. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Welcome. It's all yours.
Thank you very much. I'll see if I can manage the technology as well. Here we are. Can you see that all right?
Yes. Well done.
Excellent. So what I'm talking today about is specifically with Onimana, and I guess I'm not officially speaking on behalf of the community, but I was at a community meeting and everyone agreed with me. So I'm certainly reflecting their widespread concern. So I've got two areas of concern really, which is the visual pollution of the camping, the Freedom Camping area, and also I've got a suggestion around management of Freedom Camping, which is a bit broader. For those of you who don't know Onimana, this is the press the click. This is the main road in. There's only one road in, and this is the campsite here. So as
you're talking to the councillors who I think have a reasonable understanding of the district.
Yeah, sure, but you know the saying, never assume. So, so this is a quick photo of the road into Onimana, and as you can see, it's a lovely spot. However, it does get marred by camper vans all around the front there. This is typical of pre-COVID. It gets a little worse than this, but this is typically what it was like, and that was December, and this is an Easter. What it looks like, and that's right in the front, right in the middle of the of Onimana. So my concern here, as well as being a visually poor place to have the Freedom Camping, is that it's right on a busy vehicular road. So this is the only road in and out of Onimana, so there's a lot of traffic going through here. We've had caravans blocking the road. I'm aware of one almost accident where the person was manoeuvring the caravan and nearly collected a car. It's going over the footpath, and there's a lot of foot traffic there with children walking down to the beach and so on. And it's not the right spot, for backing on. It's a curb, not a driveway there. And there is a creek behind there, so I don't know, potentially if there were kids there freedom camping, there's a bit of an issue around safety there. And the other thing too is, and it's not really to do with safety, but fire and, what are they called now? Fire and emergency, FENS. This is the only flat spot in Onimana that they have near a hydrant that they can wash their gear down in. So one should never make a complaint without offering a solution. So this is where the current site is, and my suggestion is just up the road. There is an existing car park that's out of the way, and it's just a short walk to the beach. And I don't think anyone would complain that the view up there was not beautiful. So my recommendation is that we move the Freedom Camping site, because I know that we can't say not have it at all, but we move the Freedom Camping site from its existing position up to the top there into the existing car park.
Who said you couldn't have it at all?
Oh, the law says that you can't ban freedom camping.
Well, we're not.
Oh, sorry, the council cannot ban freedom camping. So, I mean, I think it would. Hey, if you want to ban it completely, then I'm happy with that. But I don't think that would be a sensible suggestion, because I don't think I'd get. It would be a recommendation.
Ban it outright, but can I give you an example? My understanding, I could be wrong, but is that New Plymouth only has the one freedom camping spot, which takes about quite a significant number, hundreds of camper vans in there, and they only have the one spot. So it's not that you ban it, it's that you control the number of areas where you might have it.
So are you recommending? Are you saying that you would be thinking of not having any freedom camping in Onimana at all?
No, I'm not thinking anything at all. So I'm just asking the question about what makes you think that you can't put an alternate view to say that you don't want freedom camping in Onimana, because that is another choice for the community to posit to the council.
Well, then I would propose that as well. That we have no freedom camping, or if we did have freedom camping, that we move it up to the top of the hill there to this site.
Thank you, Gary.
Can I ask a question? I've many times ridden my bike up there when I was training many years ago, and I can't recall many cars ever being up there. Is that still the case?
Up the top of the hill?
Near the top.
Yes, it is. It's
They have to walk
see
down the
probably.
It's quite small, short. Yeah, it's a track. There's a track down to the beach. It's quite
but it's steep. Sorry, Alistair?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I've probably seen at a maximum 6 cars up there, and I would say there's probably at least parking for a dozen. But normally, like when I walk up, well, I was there at Easter, and I never saw a car parked up there the whole time.
Yeah, that's my memory.
Do you think, Alistair, that's because they just want the easy access so they don't have to walk down the hill?
Well, it's the freedom campers, do you mean? Or do you mean the people in the
Anybody using the car park?
Oh, the people, that car park up the top there's about a 15 or 20 minute walk to Octopus Bay. So that's a car park for people to take that walk. There is another car park down by where the freedom campers are, and they would use that because that's flat.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, Tony? Did you have a question?
Well,
no question. No further question. Thank you, Alistair.
I haven't finished yet.
Oh, sorry. I thought you had. My apologies, Alistair. Keep going.
That's okay. You can still see the screen, can you?
Yeah.
Yes, we can. You've done very well, and we're well over time.
So the only other thing that I wanted to suggest is that in terms of management, Sandra, you were talking about can you charge for campers and so on, and it's really difficult for the council to manage. And we see here only one of these vehicles is self-contained. So my suggestion is that we have council-issued camping permits using an app. They can pay for it for a small fee. It becomes self-funding. It gives you a register of who's in the area, and it ensures that any council-appointed controller can ensure the adherence. You can log and ban non-compliant vehicles and campers. And this is actually similar to a concept that I experienced in France in the 80s. So that is a suggestion for a solution on how you can manage the campers. So finally, thanks for giving me the time to outline my concerns and offer my suggestions.
That's great, Alistair, and we've got a copy of your further submission, the one you've just presented.
This PowerPoint copy, no, but I can send it through to Anna, no problem.
It's through?
Yeah, sure.
Because it's it just adds to the submission that you've already made. But yeah, and I know you've outlined which is a bit like the current app that we're all supposed to be using. So that would be great if you could just send that through. Any questions, Alistair? There be none. Thank you, Alistair, and I really appreciate your technical presentation. It was excellent.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Very good.
Right.
And I now invite Neville Cross to page 451. Pretty much straight on after that. So Neville.
Yes, good morning, Mayor, councillors, TCDC staff. My submission is very specific compared to the others, and I see online as well represented here today. But my submission is a bit of a technical one, in that the TCDC Freedom Camping Bylaw 2014 details the Onimana Beach Reserves as a restricted area for freedom camping, and within that restricted area is a designated area for freedom camping. And the Act goes on to, well, the bylaw goes on to say that freedom camping is only allowed within the designated area. Now, going now to the review, when the review document came out, of which my submission is a part, it detailed a number of proposals relating to reclassification of designated areas in various parts of the Coromandel. Now, Onimana was not mentioned in any of those proposals, so one has to assume that the designated area is as per the 2014 bylaw. Now, going back to a bit of history, last year there was a new toilet block established at Onimana. When they put it in, the footprint of that toilet block overlapped into the designated freedom camping area, which cut down the size of that designated area. And it then seemed like almost an ad hoc decision. A separate area of land, which Alistair referred to, is now on a bend. It's highly unsuitable for freedom campers. It's unsafe and it's not fit for purpose, but it's outside the designated area. And we see this as a non-compliance by council to go outside the designated area. So really all we're asking for is that the freedom campers get out of what is a non-compliant area, get back into the designated area, because the area that's been signposted by council is not in the designated area. So we're saying, you know, it opens legal issues, it opens challenges as far as penalties and offences are concerned, and it just is not right. So we'd like you back in that area.
Do you think there should be freedom camping within the Onimana township at all?
I'm not against freedom camping. I probably don't support Alistair in his recommendation of the top car park, purely because of the access going up. It's quite windy for some of these big vans, and as you mentioned, it's quite a steep walk down to the beach. So it's a great place to go the other way from Onimana on the walks, but not such a great place to come down. And of course, a toilet block has been built down below. Now, I would say if there's any suitable area, it would be further back on the road coming into Onimana. But
you mean before you go over the brow and go down to the village?
Somewhere around about there. Pretty much like
so the answer would be
no. They've put a big area way back from the beach, and maybe something like that, because this is the prime spot.
That's right.
And the designated area can only actually hold about 3 camper vans, and with the toilets they will probably only hold 2 camper vans. So I think I'm a member of Orca as well on the committee, and the general viewpoint of the population in Onimana is that Onimana is not really suitable for freedom camping in the area around the reserve.
So you might be able to answer my question around why do people insist on giving freedom campers prime real estate spots?
No idea.
Thank you.
But really, in the submission that I've made, the new area or the non-compliant area where the freedom campers are, the car park's too short. They now sort of overhang onto the footpath, onto the road. they can only get in on a perpendicular basis from the road, whereas the previous area that was designated had angled car parks into a already established day car park. So really it's just unsuitable.
Okay, are there any further questions of Neville?
Thank you.
Neville, thank you very much indeed, appreciate that. I'll now invite John Freer.
Morning, everybody. Being bashed around by Only Mana, aren't we? What I wanted to do was simply, we provided a written submission, and that was quite interesting because, as you would have heard from Alistair, that for the first time we actually called a public meeting to consider two things. One was the council's long-term plan, and the other one was Freedom Camping. And it really gave us the opportunity, both as Orca, which is the Only Mana Residents and Community Association, the opportunity to actually come along with a much greater input in terms of our response. The public forum was well attended, and there's been a fair amount of discussion after that. And I would say, bearing in mind Neville's conversation as well, that if you ask anybody in Only Mana whether or not they want Freedom Camping down there, the answer will be no. It's as simple as that. If you want to have a discussion that can last anything up to 2 or 3 or 4 hours, just mention Freedom Camping, and the discussion becomes endless. But in a perfect world, I'd pretty much stop the presentation here, because that would be it. Sandra, you just asked the people in Only Mana want Freedom Camping. The answer is no. But we know the world's not perfect. And what we have done is we've put forward a number of recommendations in our submission. One of them is the aspect that Neville's raised about the designation. Now, that's come about obviously because the toilet's been built, but as he quite rightly points out, the area that's designated now, there's only room for about two vans or stuff. We believe that the opportunity is now there for this to be rectified. And that gives us the chance to have a look and say, well, if we have to have freedom campers, where do we put them? And it was interesting listening to Alistair about putting them up on that top car park. I can tell you now, if you moved up to that top car park, if you thought it was bad down where it's currently located, it's only half the issue. Because there's no way that people that live up at the top end of Only Mana would support that area being used for freedom camping. And we've canvassed that already. The only area that we actually see that's possibly available is that area that you mentioned when you're driving into Only Mana. If you're coming in through Whitiparoa Road, along the flat there off State Highway 25, or at the top of the hill where you've got Peninsula Road going off one way and a Pokahino Road going off the other side. It's been interesting, just during Beach Hop recently, there was a heck of a lot of people who actually did camp up there and stopped, and there's an excellent amount of space. I was one of the original camping ambassadors for the council, and freedom campers are generally damn good people. But the problem is where we've located some of these spots, they're in real high profile. The aesthetic aspect for people at Only Mana is one of the negative components, that when the washing is hung out, and I'm not joking, when the washing is hung out, you see the lot, You see a lot of other nice things too, which I won't talk about at this point. But there is also the fact of the danger, and there will be an accident there one day. We submitted some photos of vans, the size of the vans that have been parked in there. They're huge, and the amount of traffic that flows in there, it's a major funnel for people coming down and going on to the Foreshore Reserve and wanting to go down there. The school bus turns around. You heard about the fire brigade, all that sort of stuff. But it is a critical point, and it is definitely not suited where it currently is for freedom camping parking.
Can I ask you, who owns the land that you're talking about on the other side of the hill, before you go over Brown Hill where they were during the beach hop?
Well, I'm not quite sure whether...
Is that forestry ground?
Well, it will be forestry. I suppose it's actually Maori ownership up there. I don't know whether any of the transfer of the land, I know it's been discussed, but Manarikia, they're using it. But there are very wide areas off that. Yeah, so I don't know. That is just something. And as I said, we've looked at all the spaces. There's nowhere else to put the place, Sandra, other than sort of on that road link.
So can I ask one other question? So for the Puteri Only Mana and Whangamata, do you think there should be just one big paddock somewhere rather than these multiple little spots? one big paddock, and it's up to them how they look after themselves.
Well, you know, I am here representing the Onimana Residents and Community Association, you know. Personally, I think that the way that it's currently structured throughout Thames Coromandel District Council is good, because people do want variety. When I was doing my job, I saw that people would invariably get off a plane in Auckland, come and want to go to Cathedral Cove, and then they'd spend one more night in Coromandel and disappear somewhere. Now, you know, the options were down our coast. You could go to a Potri, which is a great spot because it's away from anywhere, and then you had Onimana, and of course, Whangamata. So whether or not you put them all in one big area or you leave it the way it is, I really don't have an opinion, other than I think I'd support the existing scenario.
Right, okay, without them being in Onimana, that's the question.
Well, no,
The
we're
existing
currently
scenario.
located at Onimana. The issue we have is the current location at Onimana.
Yeah,
And first and foremost, it's dangerous. There's no doubt about it. And the increasing flow of traffic that goes through down Onimana Drive up there, you know, I've lived there for 3 years and I've just noticed the increase is huge. Everybody saw the huge numbers that came here over Easter and that type of stuff, and it's only going to increase. So the risk, as someone pointed out at our meeting, you know, nothing will happen. Possibly it may take an accident before there is some action.
so can I ask another question? Do you see that they come in during the day and then park up because they know that if they get the spot early, they can stay overnight, they don't need to move?
Yeah, the smart ones know that they need to be there by 2 o'clock.
Right.
That was one of the things that I saw as a camping ambassador. Those that knew what they were doing would be at the site by 2 o'clock because they knew they'd get the space. But the situation that's occurred now, because there's no bollards or anything to protect it, they come in at 2 o'clock, but they're still coming in at 7 and 8 o'clock and parking outside. You know, just the other day we had 3 of them that were actually parked on the car park. So the actual camping site was full, but there were 3 people, had the awnings out, all that sort of stuff. And I know that the compliance officers come around in the morning and clean them out, but it's that issue from when they're parking until the time that the compliance officers come around.
Yeah. Are there any questions, further questions?
So Onimana is quite unique, I guess, in that you've got one road in and there's one business and they know everybody. So did they come along to your meeting and did they have anything anecdotal to say about whether they bring you any money?
Who was that?
Whether the Freedom Campers are coming and spending money in the shop? Because that's something we hear often is that they're not spending any money enough. And so you have a really good opportunity having one shop and one road in.
Yeah. No, they didn't come to the meeting.
Okay.
But we do know that I did an evaluation 2 years ago after the initial ambassador, and they do come and spend money. You know, there is a thing about Freedom Campers don't spend any money. That's a bit of a furphy. They do come in and spend money, and they do go and buy coffees and that sort of stuff.
Okay. Cool. Thanks.
Any further questions? Any other points you want to make, John?
No, that's fine. Thank you, Sandra. Thanks very much for giving us the chance. As I said, we're
It's actually good to hear from us. Really good.
quite interested over there, of course.
Hey?
Quite interested over there, of course. But it is. It's just the wrong location.
Yeah.
Was that? You know. All right. Thank you very much.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so the next submitter is Bruce Efford. Welcome, Bruce.
Good morning, and I won't mention any names.
Excellent.
I'll tell you what you want to tell your staff the same rule.
Yeah, okay.
A letter I sent to you was saying about the bylaws officer saying the camping ground was complaining about Freedom Campers, and the people come back, I've had 4 or 5 now come back and say to me, it's not as bad as what he makes that up. And I wrote you a letter about that and got a reply. Anyway, that doesn't matter. My area is Pepper.
Yes.
As you can see on the leasee of the camp, and I have, the last submission I made, I wasn't allowed to speak because it wasn't suitable for the thing. Rightio, here we go. One of my main things are a lot of these Freedom Campers are lifestyle, so they do it as a living. Do the council inspectors take registration numbers and put them in the computer to find out what these freedom campers are actually doing, where they're moving, the history, what are they doing. Now, the other thing is, I just heard from the gentleman before say that they spend money. They don't. Now, the Freedom Camper ambassadors, I'll go on about them. I've never ever heard of them, only on the news. And I've got a camping ground. And the other camping ground, we've never seen them or heard from them or anything. So they're hearing that side, but no one's been to find out what the camping ground proprietors know about it or anything else. So how do the ambassadors can say, oh, this has happened about freedom camping when they don't know the other side? So I think that the only reason they give the good reports is so they've got a job for next year. 6 weeks next year, they've got their summer job. Now my argument is, at Tapu, we have 2 camping grounds. We have 3 freedom camping areas within a 1.5 K circle of these 2 camping grounds. One of those is, and 2 of the areas just about boundary onto the Tapu camp. One of the areas as you come into Tapu is in front of the houses and it's by the beach. So it's right in front of the houses. That means the people in the houses have to put up with looking at freedom campers, not the view that they pay the rates for. And they've got to watch people do their business around the back of the van and everything else. They have made complaints and it's gone nowhere. The other one is over on Cemetery Point. No, Cemetery Point, not Waipakaruru, whatever it is. And that's right in front of the camp. So the people in the camp that think they've got nice views have to look over and hear the freedom campers. So I think that having 3, and the other one is on Timata Point, having 3 where there's 2 camping grounds is a bit tough. In Thames, you've got 2. You've got one at Rhodes Park and one at Danby Field. You've got a 3rd one at Taru in front of the motel, blocking the view within 500 metres of the camping ground. You've got none at Tipuru, and yet you've got a lot of reserves. You've got a Waiumu, it's down the end, which is out of everyone's way. Then you come to Tapu, you get them all there. Then you go to Little Waikawao, where they just take over. Now that doesn't really worry me. Another problem we have is these freedom campers are sneaking into the camp to use our facilities. And the ones that are doing it for a living, they book into the camp at a cheap rate for 1 night a week. They get their power charged, they get the effluent dropped, they get fresh water, they have good hot showers, they get their washing done, and then they go away for 6 days and hang around the outside of the camp again.
Have you found an increase in the cost of your effluent disposal as a result?
You've got the effluent disposal. To make it work, you should do it every year, where it could be done less, a lot less. I mean, it could be done every 2 or 3 years. But I just want to keep Environment Waikato happy, which is bloody hard, harder than keeping you happy. And so they sneak, the other ones sneak in. And they sneak in around the boundaries. There's 2 ways I can do it, is put barbed wire fences like they do around prisons, or else put security guards like they do at Buckingham Palace, standing around. But I don't see why I've got to do that, because you don't allow camping, freedom camping on the boundary. I have dropped my price down to $10 a night per person, but you won't get cheaper anywhere, and they still won't come and use it. And the ones that have been talking to the bylaws officer, they come in and then they say about, oh, you will, you know, the picture's not painted good. Instead of the bylaws officer explaining what the camping grounds are doing, don't go against them. So we've got the council fighting. Good example of bylaw officers. There was a 2 tents pitched up at the waterhole just up the Tapu Creek about Saturday night, about 3 or 4 weeks ago. A local rang up the after hours, got hold of a bylaws officer, rang back and said, I'm over at Whittianga, I'm the only one on, and if you want me over there, it's going to cost you a lot of money. Wait till tomorrow. And so she was told that she would have to pay an bylaw officer to come up and move these people on, and they were having a party at the waterhole. The next morning I went up there because they rang me and told me. I went up and had a look. At 7:30 there was bottles everywhere and everything, they were all asleep. And so I thought I'll go up and get a photo, and then two bylaws officers were there. And evidently they only prosecuted a few of them because it would have cost them too much. So my submission with this bylaw thing is the camping grounds are paying, and we're running out of our camping grounds in the area. The bylaw, the Freedom Camping areas are all on the beach, on prime sites. They bring nothing to the area. They don't buy anything or anything. They just come to the area. Most of them have what they've bought their stuff, packed it in their vans from where they are at home. They come down, they stay. If they've got full tanks and empty water tanks and that, they come into a camping ground for one night, then they move on. Now, there was a question just asked by the previous joker, by Sandra, why do they have premium sites? It's because the council put them there. When they were making their bylaws, we were asked to make submissions, we made submissions, and the council didn't even listen to anyone. The last time they had a bylaws office thing, it was about Tipuru. They took all the area, all the Freedom Camping out of Tipuru because I don't know who was there or someone was there, but they took them all out of there. I put a submission in, but it wasn't concerning me Tipuru, so they didn't even let me have a hearing. So there is a lot more to it, and I could keep on going all day, but I'm not going to bother. I just think that we should be looking at taboo, and instead of putting three Freedom Camping areas, you could put them up the tap at Timata Creek. There's a swimming hole and a bit of vacant land there that could be there, but that's a no. They can't have it up there. They've got to have them in prime positions and take it away from the people.
Do you think that, can I ask some questions?
Yeah.
Do you think that there should be a policy of not having freedom camping within a certain distance of an existing campground?
Yes, I do think that, and I think you might find that the Motorhome Association recommends to their members that they keep within 2 or 3 k's or 4 k's of any camping grounds.
Right. Okay.
Now, before I go, I think you'll find a lot of the problem that we're having in Tapu is at Coromandel too. You've got a few camping grounds, you've got 3 camping grounds at Coromandel, and they would be having the same problems. And that people that own the camping grounds have been told by council staff that we're not allowed to have any say because it's our business. It's that's affected. So we can't really, this is when it first came out, and we can't really have any say in it because the law says that we, as business owners of accommodation, are not allowed to have the privilege or whatever you want to call it. I don't know whether you quite understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah, they've got a conflict of interest as being an affected party economically, but frankly, I think everybody's got a right to have their say.
This here can come from 502 Tararoo Road, like 732 Tapu Camp. And I'll just put it in privately, but that's what it is.
Yeah, okay, and I appreciate that. It was very good actually, Bruce. It's good to hear and how it's affecting a campground operator.
Yeah.
Having it so close, and because that's the last thing I want to do is create conflicts. So, any further questions of Bruce? There being none, appreciate you coming in, Bruce. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You did well. That's all right. Right, Philip, Green, Mr. Green.
bit of time to come along here. I'm a ratepayer and resident of the district, but I don't represent any area or anything like that in my submission. My concern over the Freedom Camping Bylaw is amenity. And I think you've actually heard that from several other people while I've been sitting over there. The first thing that the council should be considering in looking at a freedom camping area is how does it affect the amenity of the people who live and reside in the district and who come to their holiday batches or anything like that, because those are the ratepayers who pay for the freedom camping. And as I said in my submission, freedom camping is not actually free, except to the people who enjoy it.
That's right.
If you look around Thames, we have 3 areas of freedom camping. You have Rhodes Park. I have no problem with Rhodes Park at all. You have Danby Field. It's a little bit of a debate in there. You have Tararoo Point. I think Tararoo Point is totally unacceptable because of the lack of amenity or the loss of amenity to the people who are living in that area. And I think those comments actually apply to the whole district. And well, that's basically my submission. The other thing that I do think needs to be looked at is the Freedom Camping Bylaw says that you can camp in any reserve except for one that's been restricted. But you have subdivisions going on which are creating new reserves which aren't being addressed in the bylaw. So I do think council needs to look at that and say, well, is freedom camping appropriate in this reserve, and make sure that that is updated, probably on an annual basis.
Do you think we should do it the other way around and say freedom camping is only in those reserves that are approved, have been approved?
That would certainly be...
That means that nowhere else,
yeah,
except in those approved places.
Yeah, I would certainly support that.
I think it's a better way of trying to, that actually is easier in a way. Are there any other questions of Phil? And so Phil, you talked about out at Tararoo, and of course that's within not too far away from a campground.
From a campground.
Yeah. So would you agree that there needs to be a general policy within the bylaw that we keep freedom camping spots away from existing campgrounds with a radius of X distance?
Well, the distance from the campground doesn't actually influence my consideration that that's not an appropriate site. But I would support that.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay.
Any further questions? There being none? Well done, thank you.
I'll hopefully get you back on time a little bit.
Very understanding of you. Please, Phil. And Graham Lomas. Is he on? Graham Lomas here? Is he on screen?
Not here at the moment.
Andrew Selby. 398.
Good morning and thank you for your time. I'm Andrew Selby. I'm a Cook Beach resident. I'm here today to talk in support of my written submission, which is specifically targeting the beachfront reserves at Cook's Beach and the Flaxmill Bay ferry landing areas, which in my submission I've asked for them to be changed to listed as prohibited areas. The submission outlines the health and safety issues that I have with it. We all know we've got a problem. Our infrastructure is overrun, or the public infrastructure is overrun, and in my submission I speak in support of the campgrounds in our immediate vicinity around the Cook's Beach, or from Hotwater Beach to Ferry Landing, that the ratepayers, the taxpayers and the employers, and they're getting the wrong end of the stick, I think. And as has been said, I first said it on the 4th of January at the Cook's Beach Hall, was freedom camping isn't free. It comes at a cost. And there's direct costs and there's indirect costs to the ratepayers, to the council. I think we've got an opportunity here to reset our tourism model, sort of towards a high value, low volume tourists. The campgrounds at Hotwater Beach, Whenua-Kiri, Hahei, Cooks and Flexible Bay are all available. I think it's underutilised, and I've poked my nose in them all recently, and they're magnificent facilities. They're neat, they're tidy, and they provide great amenities at any level. I think the trust is broken between the community and the self-contained stickers. I think people just have, the toilet in the back of the van. It never comes out of the wrapping. And another health and safety issue I think we should consider really is the friction between tourism and residents, the Freedom campers. So I don't really want to take up too much more time than that, but I just wanted to come today and be here personally to support my submission. I feel I've sort of been gazumped a bit by Zoomers and the PowerPoint presentations, but I just want to thank you for your time. And are there any questions anyone would like to follow up?
I have some questions because have you noticed increasing numbers over the last few years, increasing numbers of Freedom campers coming into the area, into Cook's Beach area?
Yeah, and also at the ferry landing store at the car park opposite there, they moved it from the toilet blocks up to there. There's 2 parks there. Most of the time, when at peak times and busy times, there's 3 or 4, and then also down at the reserve by the boat parking at the Purangi, there's say 6 places there, and there's 10.
Right. So as a consequence of the increasing numbers, would you say that locally you're losing your amenity?
Yes, and increasing health and safety issues around that. Now, I like the model where, as has been brought up here, around what New Plymouth's done. I'd be supportive of that. The park and ride in Hahei is a good example of herd mentality that corrals, people's behaviour into one area, and we are overrun. So if other areas could be found that aren't prime real estate with reduced health and safety risks and decreased effects on outstanding natural character and amenities, then I'd be supportive of that. So I've come here, I've outlined the issues I've got, and I think there are solutions. But as a NIMBY, I don't, I'm asking for them to be prohibited in those areas because there are better alternatives. A, initially use the campgrounds, and B, hopefully the council comes through with some areas that are targeted for Freedom campers as the law outlines.
Right. So you like the example of Thames, for example, which has Rhodes Park and potentially Denby Field.
Yeah, not knowing too much about those places specifically, but yeah, I do like that model where, okay, the council says here's 3 or 4 areas up and down the peninsula that is available for Freedom.
Are you aware of the Hopper Development's provision of an area for the motor vans?
Yeah, I see that most days at work.
Fantastic.
And I also see Freedom campers.
I know it's only temporary, but it's a great way. If we could, I think it's just a great way of actually providing that service ultimately.
I mean, we've got the Longreach subdivision in front of us at Cook's Beach, and it's not infrequent that you go past there and people are just parked up on the side at the end of the cul-de-sacs as well. Just they've been there overnight, and there's no residential around them yet, and so it's a nice little grassed area that they don't get annoyed. Yeah. So.
Right. Any further questions of Andrew? There being none, thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Appreciate it. Come in. You've got some extra notes on there that aren't in here. Did you want to leave that with us, or?
Yeah, I could do it. I mean, it's just.
But you've got some extra points in that I didn't see in your submission.
Yeah, no, they're just the points that I spoke to, really supporting the submission. I didn't want to make the submission too long, knowing. Okay, I'm happy to leave this if you'd like it.
If you could.
Yes, for sure. I'll give it to you.
Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you, and have a good afternoon.
Thank you, Andrew.
Cheers. I'm looking forward to the outcome.
Yes, so am I. I hope we can all be brave. Okay, So,
according to me,
you want to break 22, you don't want to say anybody else? Right, let's start the break 22, folks.
yeah, sorry.
Yes,